Perfect. Okay, so for the purpose of this recording, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name's Joanna Diana Steele. I'm a digital marketing and e-commerce strategy consultant. Essentially, that means helping businesses become digitally focused to drive growth. So I work with businesses in Central and Western Africa, but my background's lived and sort of worked and born in the UK, but recently starting work on the continent.
Nice. So kind of what made you, I guess, go into that line of work? You know, I guess in the age in which we live in, technology is such a massive part of what it is that we do. And it's really important for companies and businesses, small, medium and large, to kind of involve digital strategy into their overall business strategy. What made you go into that?
Well, kind of, I went to university and studied law, interestingly.
Oh, okay.
And hated it. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. But I always had an interest in business, and I'm also quite creative. So I like to think that marketing is almost the creative side of business.
Right.
So I changed my degree from law to marketing and Spanish. Spanish because I've always enjoyed languages. I like culture, and sort of thinking quite far ahead, I suppose. I always wanted to work internationally.
Right.
And so I thought a real, to put me in good stead would mean to learn a language. So I did marketing in Spanish, graduated from London Metropolitan University, and then did a raft of different work experience placements for PR companies, marketing departments for the Voice newspaper, and did a number of different things sort of in that marketing vein. And at that point, so that was like early 2000s, I won't give away my age, but that was early 2000s. So the internet was there, but it was still very much around traditional marketing.
Right.
And so my first roles were mainly around traditional marketing, but I could see the direction that the industry was going. And so I jumped into a fully online marketing role for a corporate governance IT software company.
Nice.
And that's I kind of learned on the job, really. So email marketing, PPC, social media was just sort of starting to kind of pick up a bit of speed, but more sort of websites and user experience online, etc. So I kind of jumped into a fully online role, and then from that moment, every kind of role that I did after that was just purely digital.
Nice.
So I went from the IT software company to a cosmetics brand, and then the last sort of 10 years worked within retail. So worked for Mothercare, no longer with us anymore, the mother and baby retailer.
Right.
And did a variety of roles there around sort of digital content, project management, platform implementations, migrations. So did quite a few roles there, and then more recently ended up at Argos, where I headed up the customer generated content team. I've always kind of worked mainly sort of in content, social media, strategy, and sort of software implementation projects, and did a variety of different things within the retail space. And then sort of last year went traveling.
Amazing, which is always great.
Always great.
The COVID period.
I tell you, I got it out. It's so funny. I feel like I got it out of the way at the right time, because
100%. Imagine if you'd left it a year.
I know, crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted some time out, and I asked to work for a sabbatical for 6 months,
Okay.
which they agreed to.
Nice.
And I sort of traveled South America, Southeast
Yeah.
Asia, and West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is, during kind of my sort of corporate career,
Mm.
I'd always done things on the side. So whether it's
Mm.
consulting for charitable organizations,
Okay.
or, you know, friends who had their own businesses, supporting them with their digital strategies and marketing. So I've always had little projects on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't say, I think when people think about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
I think it's quite a sexy thing now. It's kind of
Very,
a
very.
trend.
Yeah.
And I will hold my hand up and say that it's never been a burning desire within me. You
Okay.
know, I've done, you know, I've had a couple of businesses. I've always had, you know, a couple of streams of income with other things going on, but I've never had that kind of sort of yearning. And then it's not until I went traveling where I just saw people, sort of digital nomads with their laptops,
Wow.
you know, working from the beach, working from hostels, or
Yeah.
just sort of moving around and
Mm-hmm.
still being able to earn a living and work. And I just sort of thought, well, I work in digital, you know, I could kind of do this.
Yeah.
And then to the end of my travels, I ended up in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there kind of for partying. It was the year of return. But I knew that there's a lot going on in the tech space in Africa.
Yeah.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
developing market. We know sort of a lot's going on in terms of mobile penetration, you know, mobile money. There's a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening in tech across the continent. So I've always sort of kept abreast of what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to my traveling, I'd done some work in Equatorial Guinea. That was kind of through a contact. I did some workshops and training there. So I've always kind of had my finger on the pulse, and I've had some connections to the continent. And yeah, when I went to Ghana, whilst I went to party, I also thought, well, while I'm here, I spent 3 weeks there, and I thought, well, let me try and sort of see what else is going on out there.
Yep.
So I went to a few conferences, a few of my contacts that I knew, I met out there, and it just felt that there was a lot going on. So I came back, and then handed in my notice at work. I decided not to go back.
Wow.
After my sabbatical. And then I just thought, right, let's kind of give Africa kind of a real shot.
Wow.
So that's kind of how it came about. Like I said, I'd always done the odd thing here and there,
Yeah.
but it's only that kind of moment, I suppose, that period when
Mm-hmm.
I was traveling, where I thought, actually, I could actually make this happen. So yeah, I came back from my travels, handed in my notice, and then sort of went back to Ghana, spent more time there.
Okay.
And kind of that's kind of where we're at the moment now.
Wow. Wow. That's really inspiring. I think the fact that you were able to go traveling, or kind of take the jump, if you will, to like ask for a sabbatical, because I think a lot of us in the corporate world kind of like on edge, like, oh, can I do it quite early on in my career or later on in my career, and can I just jump and go traveling? And as a result of traveling, I guess, birthed your desire to start this business, which hopefully you'll say is like walking in purpose, essentially being able to, I guess, commit and contribute to the greater good of the continent, right? So tell me a little bit more about the work in which you do with your digital marketing business on the continent.
Brilliant. So my sort of focus is on digital marketing strategy.
Right.
So I think when you sort of say digital marketing to people, a lot of people think social media,
Yeah.
and particularly on the continent, to be fair. And it's just so much more than that. It's about, it's about how you engage with your customers across all digital channels. It's about making sure, what products and services that you are delivering to your customers, making sure they're satisfied, It's about understanding sort of your pricing strategy, you know, how your customers discover your products, you know, improving the user experience, if it's on the website, if it's an app. So there's just so many sort of facets to marketing and the marketing strategy that I think people are sort of unaware of. But my services consist of, I do audit and analysis. Oh, wow. So if you're an online store or you have an online offering, I will do a review of your website and your marketing channels, get an understanding of how you're speaking to your customers, how they're engaging with you, and give you recommendations on where you can make improvements to drive sales, to drive engagement, to drive revenue, whatever your sort of objectives are. I do digital strategy. So that includes it's a big piece of work, but essentially it includes doing an analysis, looking at the market, competitors, customers, and coming up with a sort of action plan to sort of help you achieve your digital objectives. I also do workshops and training. So I mentioned I did some work in Equatorial Guinea.
Yes.
So that was a conference for young people that they run annually.
Amazing.
And I delivered some social media workshops there. I was on a panel as well. And I also do digital project management. So anything, whether it's a new process you want to put within your business, whether it's a new implementation of a new platform, whether it's the migration of a platform, I can sort of manage the sort of end-to-end project and deliver that for you. So it's a kind of raft of different things. I also do content strategy as well, because that's kind of where my specialism is, in the sort of marketing channels. So but my primary focus is on sort of strategy and project management.
Amazing. So you do a lot. You do a lot, which is really incredible. So as you were talking, I was just thinking, I guess, about the highlights and the lowlights potentially of, I guess, having such a business and going onto the continent that may obviously operate in a totally different way to in which we do here in the UK and in the US, for example. So what has been like a key highlight in terms of you being able to deliver your service, and maybe, I guess, like a good or positive outcome of that, and what has been maybe a challenge that you have had to overcome, and maybe how did you deal with said challenge at the time?
So it's interesting because I remember a friend of mine, so I'm Caribbean background, Jamaican background, and I remember a friend and business associate who's also Jamaican background sort of said, oh, you know, doing business in Ghana specifically, her experience was that Ghanaians only do business with Ghanaians.
Right.
And she thought I would struggle. And I don't think that was her being negative. I think that was just perhaps her own experience or what she'd heard. And she fed that back to me, which made me feel a bit anxious, actually, because I did think, oh, you know, I understand sort of cultures and how people might relate to people who are the same culture as them. And, you know, so that did make me feel a bit anxious. And then I remember attending this webinar, and this lady, her name's Vivian Nwaka. She's a Nigerian founder of a pharmaceutical tech startup.
Okay. And
I remember sort of asking her a question in that session, saying, you know, being of Caribbean background, doing work on the continent, you know, what barriers am I likely to face? And her response was, look, everyone is in Africa. The Chinese are there, you know, in Ghana, there's a big Turkish kind of business community there. And she was just like, everyone is there. So you being Caribbean it doesn't mean anything really. Right. And so from that kind of gave me that, I suppose, that confidence to feel like, okay, I might not be Ghanaian, or I might not be Congolese or Equatorial or Ghanaian, but it doesn't really matter, because you know, everyone's doing business on the continent, irrespective of where you're from. But having said that, it's really important to, you know, be very culturally aware. So in Congo, they speak Lingala and French. I can't speak Lingala, but I can speak a little bit of French.
Nice.
And to be honest, most people there, they're not that great at English.
Right.
And
Okay.
so that's been a challenge sometimes, trying to, be able to sort of communicate with prospects, etc.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I have got a local partner on the ground there that can sort of manage some of that process, so that makes things easier. Equatorial Guinea, they speak Spanish, which I speak Spanish.
Perfect.
So the only Spanish speaking country in Africa. And so, but to be fair, they largely speak English there as well, so that's hasn't been a problem. And Ghana, they speak English, but I am trying to learn a bit of Tree and a bit of Ga, so when I can. So I think culturally, what I at one point thought was a barrier definitely isn't. I would also say, I suppose pre-COVID, the continent was very much, business is very much face-to-face. So, face-to-face meetings, networking events, people don't really use email to communicate in the same way that we do in the UK.
Definitely for that.
So that was a challenge, but obviously COVID now has kind of presented itself and has forced a lot more people on the continent to go digital. So, the amount of meetings that I've had over the last few months, which I know that, being in the UK would have been really, really difficult to nail down those meetings.
Right.
Because everyone's now working from home, I can have those video calls with people. So, I don't like to think of COVID as, any benefits as such, but it has changed the way of work, and has made probably things for me a lot easier, whilst I've been here in the UK, to still continue those conversations, relationships that I've kind of started when I was in Ghana. So that's one of the other things that I think sort of traditionally was quite difficult. Having to be on the ground and meeting people, but now I think people are more open to sort of having that kind of video conference and etc. The other thing which was a learning for me was the use of WhatsApp. So
don't get me started on WhatsApp and hey messages that we get from aunties, uncles, grandparents. Oh my goodness, it's too much. It is too much.
But it's so interesting, because my perception was that anyone that wanted to communicate via WhatsApp when they're talking about business, initially I looked at that as so unprofessional,
right?
And that's because obviously I'm used to using it with friends and family, and so using it in a business capacity was completely foreign to me, and I just thought, God, this is a bit unprofessional. And then I realized, no, it's not unprofessional. That's just the way in which they communicate in terms of business. And I think there's a real learning in that, for anyone sort of from the diaspora who wants to do business on the continent, is that things work differently there. And just because we're from the UK or the US, it's not better here. It's just different. And so, I think don't ever go anywhere where you're going in the world, really. Yes, you can bring some of the learnings of where you're coming from, but go there with, fresh eyes and really learn from the people on the ground, because, they're there, they live there, they know the culture, they know the, the local problems, and therefore they have the local solutions. So there's a few kind of different things I think I threw in there.
No, definitely. And I actually just want to pull you up on the last point you made, just about, I guess, our perception as diasporans. I think the running theme in a lot of conversations that I've had is diasporans have the view that, hey, I live in X country and it's better here, so I'm coming to Ghana or Nigeria, wherever it is in Africa, and I'm bringing the same kind of model that I've used here that works and applying it to a totally different cultural landscape, which isn't always the best approach. And I'd actually go as far as saying that it's not the right approach, because you actually have to learn the environment in which you're in and adapt accordingly. The skills you have are definitely transferable, but the way in which it kind of looks in practice would definitely be totally different. So I guess a key thing that I'm quite passionate about pertaining to Africa and the diaspora is collaboration. I think that in order to see an Africa that is progressive, that looks the way in which we believe, or we all have the vision that it would look like in this decade, there's a need for the diaspora and like Indigenous Africans on the continent, and whoever wants to kind of work and contribute to the development of Africa, to collaborate, right? But effective collaboration looks very different to collaboration in theory, because I could sit here and say, yeah, I'm going to contact X, Y, and Z, and it's all going to be sweet. But in practice, it's totally different. So for you yourself, I guess, given the fact that you were on the continent for some time, and like you did mention, you have a local partner in the Congo, how did you kind of navigate finding those relationships, building those relationships, and now in the world post-COVID, or during COVID, I don't even know what to call it anymore, how do you manage that collaboration?
So interesting. So my partnership in Congo is actually an ex partner, but we now still but we still work together. So I've had a long relationship with them. So that's just sort of, you know, through my sort of friendship or relationship extension of that. But my partnership in Ghana came about through meeting them at a networking event when I was there in March. And so essentially, when you're starting a business on the continent, there are some rules as a foreigner, whereby you have to have a minimum of $250,000 in cash, or, you know, materials of value to start a business in Ghana anyway. Right. And so the best, because I don't have that money, the best thing to do is to partner with a local partner. And that's sort of your kind of way around it. And how you kind of establish that partnership, it's between you and them about how, within sort of how that works. But essentially the whole idea is to partner with someone who's doing a similar service to you, not the same obviously, but a similar service where it makes sense to partner with them. So I met the guys that I work with in Ghana at a networking event, and to be honest, it was quite natural. So we just sort of were talking, and just it's kind of developed over time. And you know, it's really important when you're partnering with anyone that you sort of do your due diligence and really sort of understand sort of who you're working with, etc. So at the moment, we've been able to maintain that relationship, and perhaps even, you know, even more so during COVID. So we do things, we have weekly calls, just like you would in your own sort of team. You know, and we've delivered webinars together. We've, you know, established partnerships with some big accelerator programs. And we're sort of just looking at the paperwork now in terms of formalizing the partnership and sort of what that looks like. And so yeah, I think you've, I mean, maybe I'm just lucky. The guys in Ghana they're young, they're hungry, they're smart. And, you know, touch wood, you know, it's been a really, really strong, you know, relationship. I think it's important you get along. you know, they learn from me as much as I learn from them. And I think it's a mutual beneficial partnership, right? So, you know, as much as, you know, I'm from the UK, but they will honestly say that sometimes having someone British or, you know, not African in your team gets you through the door with African companies, unfortunately. And I suppose for me, the benefit is that, well, in order for me to be able to do business there, they have contacts as well that I can work with. And I can go around that loophole of having $250,000 which if I partner with them, I won't need to have. So it's beneficial for both of us. And, you know, they're focused more on sort of sales and brand communications. And I sort of bring the digital marketing strategy service to their offering. So I'm learning so much about sales, you know, and they kind of work in the B2B side. I'm more business to consumer, B2C. So I'm learning so much about sort of from them. And likewise, they're learning from me as well. So I think it's about, you know, there's been a couple of moments where we've disagreed, like in anything. Yeah. And so I think, I think, you know, we just kind of work through that. And, you know, there are some decisions that are made that I can't quite understand, but, you know, I trust them because they, you know, they're looking at it from a different lens and so I am. So yeah, it's been, again, I think it's COVID that has just, I think just generally in the business landscape, people are just more inclined at the moment to partner, share knowledge, and really kind of collaborate and work together. And it's been fantastic. And for me, so early on in my journey, you know, you hear all the time, you know, collaborate, partners, it's all about working together. And, you know, that's exactly how it's been for me the last few months, sort of in the UK and on the continent as well.
I think that's really encouraging to hear, especially how this seemingly unfortunate time across the globe has actually been able to benefit businesses like yourself and obviously assisting with those on the continent. So I guess in terms of advice now, practically for those that maybe either want to start a business on the continent, whether they're from the UK, the wider diaspora, whatever it may be, those that want to start a business on the continent or those that actually want to move back permanently, what kind of 2 or 3 points of advice would you give to someone like that?
So I mean, everyone always talks about your why and your purpose. And I think it's about being clear about, you know, what is your why? And for me, it's about, I think we can all sit and moan about, I suppose, the plight of Black people, the struggle, and, you know, the struggle is real, you know, let's be honest. And I think there was a moment where for a while I've just been thinking about, well, why can't I do something on the continent? I'd like to say I've had quite a good career in the UK, and seeing what's going on in the tech space on the continent kind of helped me I kind of thought, well, actually, it's an emerging market. There's a lot that's going to happen there. How can I sort of be part of helping the continent sort of develop to its true potential? And so that was always kind of at the back of my mind, that I felt that I could have some part to play in that. So I think really understand why you want to do it, right? And sort of really be sure on, you know, and be clear on your why. What I would say is go to, again, it might be a bit different now, but sort of in the lead up, I went to every event going that had anything to do with business in Africa. So there's always loads of conferences. I mean, all of these things are now online, which is fine. But yeah, so Chatham House used to do loads of different events.
I've been to a few of those. Yeah.
And so it's just to really kind of immerse yourself in everything to do with business, everything to do with Africa. I mean, for me, it made sense to do something in the fields and the skill set that I have. I think that's an easier way to enter a new market. And I'm passionate. I enjoy digital marketing, so it makes sense for me to continue doing what I'm good at and what I love. But that's not to say that, you know, I've got a list of other things that I feel are good business opportunities that I've noticed while I've travelled that are definitely on the list for me to look at a later stage. Yeah. So I would definitely say, just go to every event going. Really understand, you know, whether or not your current skill set could work, and the country it could work in. You know, potentially go out there wherever and sort of, you know, find a job in that particular country. And one thing I did do actually was make use of your holidays. So I think I spoke earlier about I went to Ghana for the year of return, but actually rather than staying a week or two, I stayed 3 weeks, and I thought, right, let me spend some time going to, there was an Essence business conference out there. I met various different people that work in the tech industry, had meetings, and was just networking while I was there. I would definitely say make use of your annual leave if you're still working full time, and visit the countries that you're interested in, and really get to know the business landscape in those countries. So that would be the 3 things really. So find out your why, go to as many events as possible, and use your holidays to really understand what's going on in the countries that you're interested in, and then from there, hopefully sort of, you know, make the jump and spend a longer time in the country. So for me now, I'm kind of, you know, when borders open,
praying for it to happen sooner rather than later.
Like literally every Sunday I listen to Nana's the president's address. I'm like, are the borders open? No. But I'd already earmarked middle of September. I've heard from a few connected people that it's beginning of August, they're saying. So we'll see. But my plan is to sort of stay there for 3 to 6 months, and really kind of get to know the ins and outs of the country. So yeah, I think, you know, if possible, just sort of go back and forth each time, kind of spending longer and longer, and just learn, you know. It's new, and there are loads of programs that are supporting people on this mission. So in March I went on the Ghana Trade Mission, which was organized. That was organized by the Ghanaian Londoners, which is a fantastic sort of organization run by Adjoa Agaman, and she did a fantastic trade mission where it was a 7-day kind of program where we met everybody from, you know, tax, government, you know, diasporans who are living out there, you know, people that are running accelerator programs. It was just 7 days jam-packed, understanding what it is to do business in Ghana, meeting people that are doing it as well. So, you know, there are loads of these things to kind of really get involved with.
Amazing. No, definitely. And I think that's actually quite key advice for anyone really, whether you want to go back to Africa or just advancing as a professional. Immerse yourself in whatever it is that you are passionate about, or that the area in which you work in, just to kind of keep abreast of what is actually going on within that space, and hopefully making some fruitful connections along the way, as in which you evidently have. So just to backtrack before I ask my final question, so with the organization that you have now started, the business you have now now started, what one problem do you think you have been able to solve or become a solution to?
Ooh. So I think the idea of a digital marketing strategy, the concept is still quite a new concept
Right.
on the continent.
Mm-hmm.
I think when people think about digital marketing,
Mm-hmm.
they think very much about tactical social media. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think introducing the idea of a strategy being a more long-term vision, and not just about the comms piece of marketing, but also the product, the place, the
Mm-hmm.
price, and all the different elements that sort of make up the marketing mix. So I think so that's the new kind of solution. It's about me bringing strategy,
Yeah.
and sort of a more of a long-term approach to marketing rather than the tactical sort of elements of marketing, which I think most businesses on the continent kind of think that's it, really.
Yeah.
So
No, that definitely makes sense. So I guess now, kind of to sort of bring everything together, in terms of the future of Africa in a life and the world post-COVID, what excites you the most about the development of the continent, and how do you think you play a part in that landscape?
that's a really good question. So I think if we're thinking about internet penetration,
Yes.
that's increasing year on year.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think in Ghana it's about 38% of the country are connected to the internet. Equatorial Guinea it's about 25%, but
Okay.
actually in Congo it's like 8%.
Mm.
So just if you think about that in context of the UK, in the UK I think it's about 95% of the people
Wow,
of
yeah.
population are connected to the internet. And so you know there are still large volumes of people that are still not connected.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's increasing year on year. So as much as 10% year on year. So it's definitely getting there. And so it's really important for businesses to understand how they communicate and sell products to the increasingly connected African consumer. The middle class is growing. And so the desire for quality products and quality services is growing as well. So I think there's a sophistication in the consumer within the continent that businesses need to start taking notice of, and therefore start communicating and selling products to that sort of growing audience.
Right.
So I think because of the nature of the internet, right, I think we just have exposure to everything everywhere.
Yeah.
So, again, if you're on the continent, you have visibility of great digital experiences, great campaigns, and so it's possible. So it's really important that African businesses and organisations start talking to African consumers in the way that they're used to, because they can see it already. And so that kind of increase in penetration, more and more people connected to the internet, that excites me. And I think a lot more countries, I think historically countries were scared of the internet, particularly of social media.
Yeah.
Because they see it as a medium for people to start a revolution and be government. And I think COVID has probably changed that perception a little bit. In Equatorial Guinea, they used to do things like do blackouts.
Wow.
No internet for a month. That's just happened in Ethiopia recently. No internet for 3 weeks. So it still happens where the governments they're still not quite sure about it, but just the figures alone are just showing more and more people becoming connected. And things like in Congo DRC last year, they kind of launched this big 5-year plan, which kind of looked at a number of pillars to drive the digitization of the country. So, Congo is the fourth most populated country in Africa. I think it's about 80 million people, but only 8% are connected to the internet. And so the government launched this big plan where they're going to be looking at infrastructure, they're going to be looking at content hosting and a raft of other things, compliance and governance, because they really understand that actually technology can sort of change the trajectory of the growth of the country. And so it's good to see that, you know, there are a lot of countries that are doing a number of things to really drive that. So I'm excited about governments working more with private companies, whether it's to, you know, improve the infrastructure, etc. And just that whole change in mindset, as you know, technology is nothing to be fearful of anymore. Right. Actually, you know, it can help us achieve. You know, we're seeing people use it in, you know, long-standing industries like agriculture, health. And so I think, the mindset is changing, that actually tech can be for good. So I'm encouraged by that. And so I think definitely that's sort of something to kind of look forward to.
Definitely. I think the key kind of takeaway point is that technology, depending on how you look at it, is actually an enabler. It can enable so many business processes and operations, and just the betterment of life of, I guess, those across the continent and different countries as well. So I guess, like, final question now, what can we expect from you in a life and a world post-COVID? I mean, I'm sure we'll probably see you in Ghana for 3 to 6 months. As soon as the borders open, see you at Gatwick. But what can we expect to see from you in the next, I guess, year or so, in the next year or so? And where can we find you as well to kind of keep up to date with the things that you're doing?
Oh, brilliant. So, I mean, over the next kind of 3 to 6 months, hopefully I'll be in Ghana.
Yes.
Solidifying my partnership with the guys there. And working with startups within the tech industry in Ghana and in Congo, and sort of, you know, supporting even some of the larger corporates with their digital strategy who might want, you know, new ideas in that space. So that's the plan, really. It's just to kind of continue to do what I'm doing with more companies, becoming a household name, if you like. My business is called Dimax, and our mission is to become the #1 digital consultancy in Africa. I'm just going to sort of keep supporting businesses on their digital marketing strategy in order to grow sales, grow engagement, and grow revenue. I can be found. My website is dimaxdigital.com. So that's DIMAXDIGITAL.com. You can find me, Joanna Diana Steele, on Instagram, and that's JoannaDianaSteele on Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well and LinkedIn. So just search me, Google me, and you should find me.
We'll find you everywhere. Amazing. So final point now. So to those watching that are interested in taking the jump, what final piece of advice would you give to them?
I would say just do it. Just do it. I think, and the way I kind of looked at it, I'm later in life, right? So I think, you know, entrepreneurs generally are like in their 20s. I'm in my late 30s. So I did this very late in life. And my thing was, if it doesn't work out, I can just come back and get a job.
Exactly. So,
And it is the case of what is the worst thing that could happen? And that's the worst thing that could happen. So I'm just like, let's do it.
Worth a try, definitely. Amazing. I think that's really great advice.